Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Laura, and today I'm going to do the TBR tag. Question number one: how do you keep track of your TBR pile? So, I don't have like a very specific system. I just have this shelf, and the jars, which I've mentioned in my older videos. I say this like I have some crazy backlog. The jars are my to be read on my list. This is what I pick from every month. This actually kind of drives what I try to purchase when I'm buying new books, but new stuff comes out all the time and not everything makes it into the jars. But the jars are organized alphabetical by book title. So everything that's on this shelf is in the jars. Anything that I buy that's not already in the jars makes it into the jars unless I plan to read it immediately. Question number two: is your TBR mostly print or ebook? I tend to say I tend to say that my TBR is mostly physical, but when I was actually looking at all of my owned unread books, my Kindle has me beat by 3 books. I've got 20 books on this shelf and I've got 23 on my Kindle. So technically it's Kindle, but I favor reading physical books, which is why my Kindle has the larger backlog because I just don't ever read it. I tend to buy books because they offer them for like $2. I'm like, oh, I want to read that. That's such a good deal. And then I never read it. Or I buy the physical copy anyway. I make a lot of wise choices. Question number three: how do you determine which book to read next on your TBR shelf? I wrote that question down weird, so my apologies. So, if I'm actually picking from the shelf, it comes from the jars. If I buy a new book that essentially goes on the shelf, then I'm pretty much reading it immediately, such as The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I just bought it and I'm going to read it, but for the sake of aesthetics, I put it on the shelf. But it is going to be my next read after I finish Rebecca, which is what I'm reading right now. But otherwise, it is from the jars, unless I'm really, really in a mood read, which does happen, and especially has happened a lot with COVID. I've been home and have nothing else to do, so I've been reading a lot, and I haven't wanted to feel confined or required to read anything, so I've just been kind of picking up wherever. But I've found a way, I think, to start editing videos again, and I want to kind of get back into a routine both with reading and recording and having a hobby again. Question four: a book that's been on your TBR the longest. I actually have been trying to keep this in purchase order ish, but I realized the other day, when I made this list, I said it was The Pact by Jodi P. Cole. However, I don't remember how I obtained that book because I didn't buy it, which means I've obtained it through questionable means. I'm thinking my friend did a, I don't really want to call it a book unhaul because normal people don't say that. That's a booktube term. But she was getting rid of a bunch of books. And when people tell me that, I just kind of take most of them because that's who I am as a person. I rehome your books to my personal shelf. So I think that's where I got that. And if that's the case, then that is the oldest book on my TBR. But if I got it from literally any other source where I don't remember, then What Happened by Hillary Clinton would be the next oldest book on the list. Either way, it's one of those two, and they've been there for years. Literally, What Happened, I mean, we all know that came out in 2017. And Jodi P. Colt's, I don't know when it came out, but I would have gotten that potentially in 2015 or 2016. So it's been a while. Question five: a book you recently added to your TBR. That would be The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, Every Other Weekend by Abigail Johnson. And those two were super recent. Also, Primer. It's not on my shelf because I already read it. So I guess that invalidates its place on this list. But I just got that as well. And prior to that, I went a really long stretch without buying any physical books. I don't. That's not true. I just read them all. Um, God, what did I mean, I bought like A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, um, Seven and a Half Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, The Illuminae Files, all three of those. I'm looking at my bookshelves behind the camera. Um, no, I just read that one. This doesn't matter. Why do I care? Those are the two most recently added to my TBR shelf that I haven't read, hence the TBR shelf. Genius. Moving on. Question number 6. A book you strictly added to your TBR because of its beautiful cover. So, I don't really have a good answer for this because if you're talking about any books on this shelf that I purchased strictly 100% for the cover, the answer is none of them. What happens is I see a beautiful cover and then I read the description and say, "Oh, I do want to read that," and then I add it to my list or I buy it depending on where I'm at. So there've been plenty of books where I've been like, "Oh, I like that cover. I want to read it." The Vanishing Half being one of them. Another one, oh, this is going to take me forever to get this out. Because You Love to Hate Me, by a bunch of people. And sorry, there's dust all over this. It's not even that old. It's a book of short stories about, like, I think villain perspectives. And I bought it because actually, I guess probably a lot of you know what this is. It features a lot of booktubers, which I thought was really cool. But the reason I wanted to read it was because Marissa Meyer has a book in here, I think. Yes, Marissa Meyer has one. So that was the reason I picked this up. But the cover is gorgeous. But I didn't buy it because of the cover. I bought it because of Marissa Meyer and the YouTube aspect. The cover just drew me in. So the technical answer to that question is none. But there is a book I added to my digital TBR, which I guess I didn't mention. I do have a digital TBR via Goodreads, where there's a million books I say I want to read, and then I never buy them or read them or forget about them. So, I mean, I have that super long list, and I'm sure I've added books to that because they were attractive. I know that I added The Luckiest Girl by Jessica Knoll. Look at this beautiful cover. But I didn't buy it, and it's not on my actual shelf, so I don't know that that counts. And also, I'm pretty sure I read the description and liked the description. I have purchased books a second time because they have a more attractive cover, such as the Lunar Chronicles. Although I love the original artwork, I love the new artwork. So I am getting around to buying a new copy of those. I'm getting around to buying new copies of the Harry Potter books because they're coming out illustrated. So, I mean, in that regard, I've bought it just because of the cover, but I already knew the story and it's not on my TBR shelf. So, again, invalidates. Point is, I don't judge a book by its cover completely. Question number 7. A book on your TBR that you never plan on reading. Hopefully, I read all of them. That is the reason that I've purchased them, held on to them. But the reality is, I always buy new books and I don't always read the books that I own. The two most likely not to be read, maybe even 3, Jodi Picoult. There's a reason she's been hanging out this long. I think she usually has a lot of brilliant ideas, but I read 3 of her books and they get very predictable. She follows a very specific formula, and every time I read it, like My Sister's Keeper blew me away. I did not suspect the ending. It was the first book that ever made me cry. And then I read 19 minutes, and about, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the way through, I'm like, XYZ is going to happen, just based on how My Sister's Keeper just totally 180'd. I went there immediately with 19 minutes. I was like, okay, what's the most insane thing that could possibly happen in this scenario? And then I was right. And I figured it out too early for that to have any satisfaction. I haven't read much else by her because that kind of tarnished me a little bit. But that one is like a murder-suicide story. It's really compelling plot synopsis, so it's up there. The other one is Vox by Christina Dulcher. which I had put on my list because it reminded me of The Handmaid's Tale and but like more modern. I don't know. It sounded interesting. And then I just saw on Goodreads the other day, someone just kind of tore into it about how it was just a terrible knockoff of The Handmaid's Tale, which makes sense reading the description. But I have a feeling, much like the other book that I read recently called The XY by Virginia Burgin, it's just not going to be good. I got maybe 50 pages into The XY, by the way. It was terrible. Don't even read it. It's just awful. Um, but yeah, I have a feeling Vox is going to be very similar, but it's still technically in my TBR jar. It's in my TBR list. I'm going to keep it hesitantly. Question number 8. An unpublished book on your TBR that you are excited for. There are only about 3 or 4 releases for the rest of the year that I know of that I'm excited about. The first one I can think of is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer because I am trash for all things Marissa Meyer. So real excited for that one. It's gonna be really interesting to see her actually write like a normal contemporary and not like superheroes. But I'm excited. It does have a sort of supernatural element, but it takes place in the real world. I don't remember the plot, so this is me just saying it sounds exciting. The other one is One by One by Ruth Ware. She has been hit and miss for me, but the hits have been so good that I will read anything this woman writes because even when I didn't like her books, it was still well written and still an enjoyable ride. I just wanted more from it. But again, I forget the premise of this one. I'm so prepared. This is about 5 months of COVID and no computer and no video editing has done to me. I've just gone crazy. Look at this situation. Anyway, there's those two. Despite the fact that I've read roughly none of the Twisted Tales stories, those Disney retellings, there is an Alice in Wonderland one coming out soon. The next Cormoran Strike novel is coming, and I know J.K. Rowling is garbage, but I do kind of want to finish that series, so conundrum there. And there is something else coming out, but that's all I can remember, so we're going to stick with One by One and Instant Karma because top 2 most excited. Question number 9, a book on your TBR that basically everyone's read but you. Well, The Vanishing Half everyone has read very recently, but I'm about to read it, so I don't know if that one totally counts. I know that people that I have been watching on YouTube have read Frankly in Love, Landline, Turtle All the Way Down, and Lock Every Door. Those are the ones that I can think of that I've seen kind of pop up on YouTube, and probably where I got most of the recommendations, but I think Lock Every Door is probably the most frequently seen, and coincidentally, the one I'm probably most excited about. Question 10, a book on your TBR everyone recommends to you. I am the one who recommends. I have a personal library, which is smaller than almost all y'all on here, but it's big in my circle. And actually, right now, I have, I think, 9 books lent out to people. I am the one who recommends books. I very infrequently get them recommended to me. So it's very difficult for me to actually think about this. I know one of my friends recommended The Testaments, but that's partially because she knows about The Handmaid's Tale, so it's just, and I don't know if it counts as a recommendation so much as I knew we had a conversation about the fact she was reading it, and I was like, oh, I forgot that came out. I want to read that, so she's going to lend it to me at some point. And my other friend, who is a voracious reader, has recommended books, but like, I don't know what they are. It's been a while since we've had that conversation. It tends to be me. I read faster than anybody I know. And I talk fast. So in terms of, there's not a real answer to that question, but if I count books that I see on YouTube all the time, so it's like if I stick to the fact that I watch a couple channels a lot, their particular favorites would be repeated a lot in those videos. But the one I do see frequently come up the most would be Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. But this does have me wanting to kind of pick my favorite booktubers and then find their favorite books and do kind of a video about that, which isn't really related to this question. It just kind of popped into my head and I'm saving that for later. So I don't know the answer to this question. This tangent went whoo. Anyway, um, you know what? Let's flip that. Let's flip that question. What is a book that I recommend to everybody? Because guess what? It's The Diviners. I recommend that book to anyone who will listen to me. Literally, everything I do on Reddit, every single person I talk to. If you want a book recommendation, it's The Diviners. It is my favorite book series of all time. And I had a really good video and I lost it on my broken computer all about The Diviners, and I don't have the energy to recreate it, despite this outburst. But in my defense, every person I have recommended The Diviners to has loved it. I have not gone wrong with that recommendation yet. So if you take anything away from this rambling, crazy ass video, read The Diviners. If you've already read it, read it again. Question 11. A book on your TBR that you are dying to read. Can I have the same book for 3 answers in a row? Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. The other I'm most excited about is The Vanishing Half, but again, it is next on my list. So I barely count it because I'm about to read it. And yeah, I guess that's really it. Those 2 plus, nope, those 2. We're just going to end it there. Get this going. There's one more question. Why am I acting so insane? Yay, notes. What happened? What happened? No. Question 12, and the final question before I get out of your face. How many books are on your shelf? 20. There's 20. However, I have 12 on Audible that I've never read, and 23 on Kindle that I've never read. And if you really want to get into it, my Goodreads has like 400. Some of those are duplicates. I do try to cull that every now and again, but I'm pretty bad at it. So 40, 50? Math. There are 50 official books that I own that I haven't read. That may not be a lot to a lot of you, but that is a lot to me, considering at the beginning of this year, that number was significantly smaller. So anyway, that's all for this video. I am done yelling at you about things that I don't even know. It feels good to be back. I'm excited to get back into this, and here's to hoping I can figure out how to edit this on my phone, because that's the world I live in right now. Should I give an update video? Does anyone care? Because those of you who care already know me in real life, and you already know because I talk about it. Okay, that's all. Bye!